What's up, everyone? Post-game Locked On Bucks. Milwaukee extend the winning streak to 5 games now. They beat the Thunder 142 to 115. And Giannis made light work of this game, an extremely young Oklahoma City Thunder team that was very, very, very short-handed. And Giannis did what you might have suspected he was going to do against this roster. Plenty of questions, including should those guys all have played? What does it mean for the back-to-back moving forward? And other things from this game. So let's get started.
You are Locked On Bucks, your daily Milwaukee Bucks podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On Bucks. I'm your host, Kane Pittman. You can see and hear me on this show Monday to Friday, and also find my work over at ESPN. And joining me, the founder of brewhoop.com and longtime voice of the podcast, Frank Madden, for today's episode that is brought to you by PrizePicks. Check out prizepicks.com and use the promo code NBA, or go to your app store and download the app today. PrizePicks is daily fantasy made easy. We thank you for listening or making Locked On Bucks your first listen of every day, as well as always, whether it's on the audio platform or YouTube. We really appreciate it. And Frank, we just jumped on this call and I said to you, well, that wasn't quite as exciting as the last 3 games that we had, going down to the final seconds, playing against these contending teams. I'll be quite honest, a lot of these players playing for the Thunder I've never seen play before, never heard of them before. But the Bucks still had to take care of business. They win 142 to 115. Giannis, 27 minutes just to rack up 39.7 rebounds, 7 assists, 3 steals, a block there as well. He wasn't messing around. It looked like a man against a bunch of high schoolers, to be honest, a lot of the times. So we enjoy that part of this game. Were you expecting all these players to play? I guess that's the first question. It was certainly a topic of conversation on Twitter, on the broadcast, and everywhere, keeping in mind that this is a back-to-back.
Yeah, I mean, I'll be honest. I saw the list of players out for the Thunder this afternoon, like a few hours before tip, and I thought, I wonder if we'll see a random Giannis back soreness or something going into this game. And I'll be honest, I actually didn't realize that the Hawks game was tomorrow. I thought it was Thursday. So I was watching on a little bit of a delay. I wasn't on Twitter or anything like that. So I was kind of oblivious to that discussion as the game was happening, and then only realized when they started talking it during the game that they were, and Bucks are indeed on the first night of a back-to-back. Honestly, obviously tomorrow you expect a harder game just because the Hawks are a better team, but it's also at home. So yeah, I mean, if you're going to pick a game to be rested for, it would be that one. I think Grayson Allen, hopefully him sitting out another game with hip soreness. We saw him miss some time before the break due to, I think we've heard that both of his hips are sore. I forget which one was the cause officially for his absence tonight. But at this point, if you were to take this game lightly, and the Thunder shot 41% from 3 tonight, I mean, they went completely cold there in the last 5 minutes when all the kind of reserve units were in, or they could have scored 125, 130 probably themselves. I mean, it was down to I think about 12 at various points in the fourth quarter. So Marcus referenced the not playing with your food line tonight. For the most part, Bucks kept it up in double digits for most of the last 3 quarters. This version of the Bucks team, I'll just say, you know what, run your 3 guys. Hopefully you don't need them to play big minutes, and just bank that win, and then hope that you can bounce back the next night and take care of business on the second night of the back-to-back. So I'm not gonna kind of double second guess it too much. And obviously, as you mentioned, Giannis, we always talk about Giannis and how he's a guy that plays hard every night. Yeah, but I think Giannis has gotten much smarter over the years about kind of choosing his battles. I mean, the first five minutes of this game or so, really wasn't even looking to go to the basket, do much of anything. He was kind of deferring, letting other guys start. Bobby Portis and Chris kind of got the Bucks off to a hot start, and then he kind of decided, got a layup, hit a 3, and then you could see in the second quarter a little bit, and then certainly in the third quarter, and then the beginning of the fourth quarter, he was just like, all right, let's just wrap this up. I got a game tomorrow, and the Thunder obviously just had nothing for him, and just again just driving, telescoping arms and limbs, and he had one of those dunks. He has when he's like once a week, where he's like driving and he brings the ball over, kind of contorts his body, Eurosteps, does something, and he takes off from a spot where it's like, oh, okay, he's going to go in for a layup. That'll be impressive. And then next thing you know, he's dunking, and it's like he's dunking where it looks like he's basically landing on the ground simultaneously. I'd be curious if you looked at some of these, like that dunk he had tonight in the fourth quarter, where like, does his foot actually come down before he actually releases the ball, like, which would technically be a travel? I don't know. I mean, again, he can't dunk flat-footed on a 10-foot hoop, but just his extension is just so insane. And tonight, he hits the three, that like pull up 28, 29 footer, whatever it was, going into, I guess, halftime. That was kind of the story for Giannis tonight. 4 out of 4 from three. I think it'd been a few games since he hit a three. So nice to see him kind of rediscovering a little bit of that touch. And after some early misses from the foul line, he connected on, I don't know how many straight he hit to close the game, but 9 out of 13, respectable after some struggles last few games. So yeah, 7 assists, I think, with just 1 turnover. He was in complete control tonight and forced some turnovers. As you said, man amongst boys. And I'm not going to lie, as somebody who, is a Giannis stat tracker extraordinaire, I was definitely happy to see him rack up some big numbers without having to play a ton of minutes tonight, offset the underwhelming second half against the Suns on Sunday. So he'll be back up to 29.4, 29.5 points a game. And anytime you put up 39, 7, 7 and 4 stocks in 27 minutes, because don't get me wrong. I mean, to be clear, Kane, I mean, I'm checking Basketball Reference after every game. I'm looking at Giannis' EPM. I'm checking his EPM. I'm just tracking all that stuff because I just like to see kind of where he sits. And it's his stats are a work of art. I mean, what he does just night in night out is incredible. And the way he did it tonight obviously was really fun to watch. So for him to kind of be doing what he's doing, and Chris also just another really efficient. 25 points on 17 shots, didn't miss a beat, coming off that big game on Sunday, and lots of help for the Bucks tonight as they hit 23s, and offense just continues to click. Defense maybe leaves still a little bit to be desired, but with the 3-point shooting, so it goes. But hey, banked a win, didn't have to extend your guys too much, and now obviously you just have to try to keep the winning streak going tomorrow night on the second night of a back-to-back.
Well, we know you love Giannis stats, but other people that love Giannis stats are PrizePicks users, which is the daily fantasy option for NBA fans.
Take the over.
Take the over, and you should be trying the award-winning app. That's PrizePicks Daily Fantasy made easy. I love it. You guys have heard me talk about it, and you will too. You just pick 2 to 5 players and an over and under on their projections, and you can win up to 10 times on any entry. And it's just you versus the projected numbers. Now, I will say, for Giannis, those projected numbers might be a little high, but there's other players that you get to use. Entries could be made in 60 seconds or less. It's that easy. PrizePicks is safe and offers fast withdrawals. And as I said, you can just use the award-winning app, and you can do that on the App Store or Google Play as well. A little strange, but you can use Google Play if you want. PrizePicks offers any prop that you can think of, from points scored to rebounds, even steals, and mean mugs. Although I've really fallen behind on that over and under. I'm going to have to go back. I really set myself up for that one. For long-time listeners, they know what I'm talking about. No one else does. But for a limited time, PrizePicks has an exclusive no-brainer of an offer for all our users, all our listeners. The users for PrizePicks get $50 for free if a player in your first PrizePicks entry scores a single point, but you must use code NBA. That's right. This is an exclusive offer available to Locked On fans. Sign up today and use the code NBA for $50 free if a player in your first PrizePicks entry scores a single point. That's PrizePicks Daily Fantasy made easy. I've mentioned the Locked On Now podcast. Make sure you check it out. After a big night in the NBA, wake up in the morning, you listen to Locked On Bucks, then you chuck on the Locked On Now podcast and get a recap from around the league, particularly those late West Coast games. I know some people go to bed a little bit earlier than we do, Frank, and they might not know what the scores are. So Locked On Now podcast, check it out. We were talking about Giannis and his pursuit of Kareem on the podcast yesterday. So that 39 points certainly helps that. Down to quick math, he must be down to around 274. There we
Yeah.
go.
Hey,
274.
look at us. Look at us. Mental
we're-
math for the win.
People think we're not smart, Frank, and they're wrong. We're not just podcasters. Being a podcast doesn't mean that you're not smart. Two very intelligent men here on the Locked On Bucks podcast. But 274 points. But the other question I have for you, and you might know this off the top of your head. I think he was at 29.2 points per game before this game. What does he have to do? You know what I'm going to say to get to the 30.
To get to 30.
To get to the 30.
Yeah.
Do you know?
I don't know offhand, but
Pathetic.
now I kind of now I want to kind of do some quick math to see what he would need. But yeah, I'll be honest. I think I would rather have him score 30 a game and not win the scoring title than have him win the scoring title at like 29.8.
Oh,
Just because I would just love to be able to admire that 30 on his basketball reference page for the rest of time. You know, it's amazing. Like looking back, you know, we've had a lot of, well, I don't know. I feel like we've had a relatively high number of 30 point per game scorers the last few years, and you know, this season's been interesting. You know, as often happens, scoring at the beginning of the year was kind of down. Didn't feel like, especially with the new rules, didn't feel like guys were going to be scoring at that kind of really high level. And now you look at especially the MVP favorites with, you know, Jokic, Embiid, and Giannis. Just feels like those guys are putting up just these monster scoring lines night in and night out. And we'll see. I mean, we'll see. I think Giannis should be right around kind of that 29.5 mark after tonight's game, but you know, still trailing Embiid, and I guess LeBron now is right there too, and Jokic is not close to those guys in terms of kind of the raw scoring stuff. But yeah, it's interesting to kind of just track this, and certainly, you know, I think people have probably seen just the numbers, just, you know, Giannis for the past few months just averaging, you know, well in excess of 30 points a game, and man, just the consistency, right? The night to night consistency, especially given that he frequently does play, like, you know, more so than these other guys. He'll play like 25, 27 minutes a game. Not that irregularly, right? I mean, he's not playing 37 minutes on average. He's had obviously some of those games in the high 30s, but for the most part, he's doing this just, you know, night in, night out. When the Bucks play a lesser team, he just piles up points and then gets his rest in, and then nights like this, he gets his rest in and just, you know, still completely goes nuts in the scoring department. So yeah, interesting thing to kind of track, subplot for the rest of the season, and obviously with him threatening 30 points a game, certainly seems like, again, you know, knock on wood, that he stays healthy and doesn't miss, you know, any time. I'm sure he'll get, as you guys were saying yesterday, sure he'll get some games off kind of in the stretch run here. But, you know, with barring anything unforeseen, obviously seems like a very, very good bet that he will be breaking Kareem's franchise scoring record. And I would say it definitely snuck up on me. You know, I had not been thinking about it that much, but kind of only fitting, right, that he hits that sooner rather than later, and might as well get it out of the way with now. And you know, we can, again, I think people still be able to debate, you know, how long is it before he really is kind of like owns all those numbers and is kind of truly the unassailable best player in franchise history. But yeah, he's just in incredible form right now.
It's interesting. I just looked this up as you were talking there. So, because of course, as you pointed to, I mean, the interesting thing is his minutes. And if you go back a couple of seasons ago to 2019-20, where he averaged 29.5 points per game, he was only playing 30 minutes. Per 36, he was actually up at 35 points per game, which I think LeBron is averaging, last time I checked, was around the 37 mark. So you have to take those things into account. Of course, Bud just could have played Giannis a few more minutes. Frank, you would have been happy that 30 would have been there for all of time. But this is actually the second best scoring per minute season that he's had in his career so far. But it's just interesting because I was listening to a number of debates this morning, because I think coming up soon, there's been a lot of talk about this Philadelphia-Brooklyn game coming up, but I think soon after that, there's a Philadelphia-Denver game. And then you'll have the Jokic versus Embiid battle. And yeah, I think for the most part, when people look at the MVP discussion, it's basically been narrowed down to those two. we discussed again, if the Bucks keep beating these teams like they did in the last week, they've got a difficult schedule. Maybe Giannis can make a late push there. Potentially the scoring title would help him. But I think overall, it's the perfect example of what happens when your team's been winning for a number of years, when you've already claimed a number of these awards. The old LeBron argument from all those years where he probably should have won it as well. Giannis is kind of there right now, which is for people that love seeing Giannis collect all these trophies and all these awards. Now, I will say, I'll take a finals MVP again over a regular season MVP. There's no doubt about that. But it's a little bit of a shame because just numbers-wise, the numbers that he's putting up, it would have been a no-brainer 2 years ago or 3 years ago when he first won his MVP. It's just we're in that weird spot, Frank, where we're watching this generational guy he's just so good that he's not getting the respect he deserves.
Yeah, I really hope he can get to a third MVP because, again, I mean, just you add an MVP or you add a championship. I mean, he is in such rarefied air that the list of the list of guys who've won, two MVPs and a Finals MVP and a championship is extremely short, and that's why he's already, a top 20 or right around ish guy, even if he retired tomorrow in NBA history. And so, you add another at least 8 years, right, till he's 35, hopefully another decade, however long he wants to play. If he adds another MVP and another championship in Milwaukee, I mean, that's top 10 easy in terms of, just sort of legacy of the sport. And just, again, the numbers are going to be incredible, but once you get to that kind of uber level of superstar, obviously I think a lot of it does come down to just, the ultimate hardware, championships and MVPs. And, I mean, right now, I think if the season ended today, I don't think he should win. I think, again, I just don't think the Bucks have been quite good enough, and his numbers, Jokic dominates all the kind of advanced metrics. So I would put Jokic as my MVP right now. I mean, the Nuggets are basically as good as the Bucks and Sixers. There's really not much to kind of split between those teams. Bucks do have a chance to go ahead on percentage points tomorrow. If they can beat the Hawks, they would move ahead. They have one more loss, but they would have 2 more wins if they win tomorrow than the Sixers. I think the Sixers don't play until Thursday. So again, if the Sixers win, they would move back ahead. But, hard to kind of split the difference between the Bucks and Sixers and Nuggets in terms of record. And I think again, even though the Nuggets are further down in the standings, that's just because they're in the West. And I mean, Jokic dragging that team to where they are, I think.
Yeah.
And just the absolutely astounding numbers he's putting up. Again, scoring, he's not quite in raw terms where Embiid and Giannis are. And defensively, of course, you can make the case that I would say Giannis is better than both those guys. But Jokic, I think, really has been an underrated defender, especially in the regular season. And the way he's, again, just his passing and everything he does, the efficiency is just off the charts in terms of his scoring. I mean, just the shooting percentage. I mean, again, the guy just can score from everywhere. So, and I think honestly too, I mean, again, like the fact that Giannis, lost each of the 2 head-to-head matchups with those guys recently. Again, I don't think that's what the award should be based on, but look, I get it. These guys are so close that I do think those kind of final matchups do matter. And obviously we're not going to see Giannis and Jokic play again, but we are going to get another chance to see, hopefully, if they're healthy, Embiid and Giannis play. I think they still have 2 more. They still have 2 more games. I think they have 1 each, right? In Philly and Milwaukee, if I recall correctly. So obviously, if you're the Bucks and you can beat the Sixers twice, that would really help your MVP case. But look, I think to your point as well, I think Embiid, the fresh factor, the story, the narrative factor, the fact that he hasn't gotten to that point yet, and he's been obviously totally incredible. Again against the Bulls last night, another 43 points. Look, all these guys are deserving, right? Like, I don't think if either of those 3 guys won, you could sit back and say like, well, that's BS, right? I mean, they're all having seasons that, as you were pointing out, any other year, you could put those guys' numbers against whoever won MVP, and you'd say, man, that's historic greatness that we're seeing from those guys. Just so happens they're all doing it in the same year, and again, we're getting close to the end of the season. I don't know, if Obviously, Embiid's had the most injury problems last year that might have cost him a chance at an MVP. Even if Embiid got hurt now and missed like 10 games, would that swing it to Jokic, for instance, for all intents and purposes? Maybe, but hopefully all these guys are going to get through the year relatively healthy, and we're not going to have another year where guys who could have potentially challenged kind of get knocked out. So yeah, as you said, I'm definitely I don't watch tons of like non-Bucks games at this point, or at least full games. I kind of cruise around on League Pass most nights, but Jokic versus Embiid is definitely a matchup I want to see, given that both those guys know they know what's at stake. They know how their reputations kind of are partially defined by how they play against each other. So it's going to be that's definitely, in terms of non-Bucks matchups, that's going to be a fun one to watch. But again, if you're Giannis, just keep doing stuff like this and keep winning games. That's all you can do. And I think the big thing, if Giannis is going to win MVP, obviously keep putting up the huge numbers and then try to get to that 2 seed, right? If you can finish ahead of the Sixers, that would ultimately, I think, be the best argument for finishing ahead of Embiid. Whether you can catch Jokic, I don't know, but that's kind of one of these things too. Like, again, does like one game in the standings here or there matter that much in terms of really parsing this out? Maybe not, but I think, again, in terms of when it's so close, I think using that as a tiebreaker is a perfectly fair way to do it.
It is. Now, he just tweeted as you were talking, and he said, wait, there's the camera. 5 in a row, but stay humble. And then he put the photo of him holding that pose for about 30 seconds after knocking down a 3. So I love that he says stay humble, and then this beautiful photo of him just holding that 3-point pose, which, by the way, the Bucks social media put up a clip today of him challenging Wes Matthews to a 3-point game. He knocked down 10 in a row. He's running around with an absolute manic laugh. So my question is,
4 out of 4 tonight, just keeping it going. I mean, there you go.
When was the last time
when's the last time you missed?
3? Is he ever going to miss? I think that's the question we need to ask. By the way, the interesting thing I find about this year's MVP race is that it's kind of the reverse of the Rookie of the Year conversation when Joel Embiid was there. Malcolm Brogdon's been injured for a lot, and that's probably hurt his MVP case. But otherwise, he... All right, anyway, let's move on. Let's not even continue that silly joke. But the one thing I love about Giannis is the way his resume has been built up rapidly. And the only thing that has been built as rapidly as that is Built Bar. There's no doubt about that. And the best tasting protein bar that's ever been made. Most people, as we know, we've discussed it, they've given up on their New Year's resolutions, but not me, because mine is dietary and I love Built Bar, which means that it's easy to do. I never think that I'm on a diet if you're eating Built Bar. You never feel that way. It's low calorie, high protein. You replace any other candy bars that, not so good for you, but tasty. You can get all that with Built Bar, whether it's mint brownie, coconut almond. And this month, as I mentioned, the white chocolate cookies and cream. I haven't tried that one, but I'll tell you what, it sounds pretty bloody delicious. And these new flavors are coming out all the time. If they think a flavor might be good, they're going to try it out. So it'll be delicious. It'll also be good for you. At Built Bar, they are simply all about the taste. Just go to Built.com, use the promo code LOCKED15 and get 15% off your order. Use promo code LOCKED15 for 15% off at Built.com. Most people will notice we haven't spoken a lot about this Bucks and Thunder's game because there's not a lot to be taken from this. I will say Serge Ibaka, another 14 points. Yeah. Again, the Thunder crowd was very respectful of him, a much-loved man in that city, no doubt about that. But, I don't think we can take too much away from that. Javon Carter had 12 points. He was shushing fans in the front row during this blowout, which I found at least a little bit interesting. And then probably, to me, honestly, the other most entertaining thing about this game was Thanasis on the very last possession when everyone was audibly saying, hold it, hold it, hold it. And Thanasis was like, fuck this. I'm throwing down this dunk on 2 Thunder players, and then didn't get the call. And then was asking the official where the foul was, which I just found absolutely unbelievable. All the players were cracking up laughing. I went back and watched this 3-4 times, and you can see Bud on the bench throw his hands in the air and then just sit down like a disappointed father. He's thinking, why did he do that? But I like it. I find it very entertaining, even if there will be some people out there to say that's very unsportsmanlike. I don't care. I love that decision to try and do something so ridiculous from Thanasis. I was a big fan.
Yeah, I think even Giannis was kind of laughing at him, like in that kind of like, oh man, what are you doing kind of way.
What else you
Yeah,
got from this game, Frank? I'm
I would
sorry to...
say it was kind of funny. I think the Thunder go out to an 8-2 lead, and the the amount of interest given by the Bucks to closing out on some open threes, like they were like, I think Isaiah Roby hit a three. It was a pick and roll. Giannis was playing like drop, and he could not have cared less that Isaiah Roby was getting an open three. But they were pretty much just like, all right, Thunder, you if you guys want to have uncontested threes, we're going to give you a lot of those, especially early in this game, just sort of see if you guys can make any shots. And it was very much a yeah, we're the champs and we're playing, the Thunder G League squad. Um, the Oklahoma City Blue, I believe they're called. They were like, we're playing the Oklahoma City Blue tonight, so we're not going to really show a whole lot of engagement here early, and then see kind of how this goes. So yeah, you kind of could tell the Bucks were not taking this game that seriously early on, and then kind of, all right, got their asses in gear a little bit. Carter. That's like the nice thing about Carter and DeAndre Bembry is that, like, I mean, those guys can't
Yeah.
they cannot choose their spots. They cannot decide that they're going to take nights off. That
Bambury shot a three tonight. I thought of you.
he did,
Missed it.
and I thought it was interesting. He had a catch. I don't know if it was on a cut or something, but he caught it like on the right side of the lane, where he thought, oh, maybe he's going to go for a layup in the first half. He did kind of like a wraparound to Serge Ibaka for a dunk, and then he had another paint touch on the other side of the lane, kicked it out for, I don't know if it was Serge again or who it was, but he kicked it out for a three, and the guy hit it. And I was like, at the time, I was thinking like, man, this dude just does not want to shoot. And I looked it up. His usage rate coming into this game was 4%, which is like, I don't know if Tony Snell ever got down to single digits. Like, Tony Snell had a hilariously declining usage rate, like from the start of his career in Chicago through Milwaukee. It was like low teens to, like, I don't know, it was like 10% or something. Sort of by the time he was headed out. But like, Tony just, usage, like, generally, like, shots and turnovers, pretty much what you're calculating there. And no, he's not taking shots. He's not turning it over, and it just seems like DeAndre Bembry really just just trying to not upset the apple cart. I'm just gonna go in there, play defense, be that connector. I think Eric wrote about this, and I talked about it when the move was made. He was kind of like Dante DiVincenzo, except he really didn't look for threes, and was a better finisher. And certainly, yeah, I mean, the connector piece, I think, is there. He's a guy that likes to kind of kick it around, move the ball. But I mean, I have been surprised at how little he has looked for his shot. And I was looking at the minutes. I mean, I think he's taken like more than one or two shots like once in like the 5 or 6 games now that he's been here. So yeah, DeAndre. I mean, again, I know you're not a 3-point shooter. I said don't take the 41%. As something to kind of bank on that he hit early in the first half of the season in Brooklyn. But yeah, he seems just very content to just sort of kick the ball around and be that guy who just doesn't force up shots, doesn't want to miss shots. So we'll see. But John Carter, 4 threes tonight. That was nice to see. And Bucks, 23s tonight. I looked it up the other day because I was curious. Who did they beat? Who did they beat that hit 23s again? Oh, it was Miami. And I think I tweeted out the stat. I don't know if we talked about it, but in the Bud era, did you see the stat I had about the Bucks record?
It was like 16-0 or something.
Well, they were 16-0 when they hit 23s. So now 17-0, right? So if the Bucks hit 23s, as you'd expect, when you have Giannis and you hit 23s and you generally have a pretty good defense, yeah, you're going to win those games. 17-0. When opponents hit 20 plus threes, did you see the number that I tweeted about that? I mean, you probably did if you remember the 16.
I did, but I can't actually remember. It was like 9 and 13 or something.
It was 12 and 16,
okay.
Which is shockingly decent. Yeah, like when you think about just the what you have to do right to beat a team when they hit 20 plus 3-pointers. That's really hard. And I think the last 2 years, I think they're 500 or something. I think they're actually 500 this year and last when teams hit 20 plus threes, which again is pretty remarkable to be able to do, win the other facets of the game in those scenarios. So So we'll see. And I was kind of looking at, I think we saw it again tonight. I think the defense, kind of hard to take too much out of it, right? Because I think in a lot of these games, the Bucks have just sort of decided like, we can just outscore these dudes, right? Like we don't really need to put too much of a, lock down too much defensively. If things are close, we've seen them that they can lock down and play with more intensity in fourth quarters. I was looking at it since January 1st, they're fourth in offense, 18th in defense. So not great, but a definite component to that is, I think we talked earlier in the year how much luck they've been having how much luck they were having from in terms of opponent 3-point shooting, and that has definitely reversed a fair bit. And I was looking at cleaning the glass. I think they're like 16th now in terms of opponent total 3-point percentage. So have basically gone right back to average, right? So at this point, you'd say, well, they're not really like getting that lucky. I think their opponent wide open 3-point shooting is still towards the top of the league. So although I think they're no longer number one in that stat. So again, that was masking, I think, a lot of the kind of underlying softness to their defense. And we've talked about kind of their shot distribution has gotten worse in terms of more threes, more shots at the rim, and they're worse protecting the rim, as you might expect this year. So I don't know, we'll see. But as you kind of point out, Serge Ibaka, another nice game, kind of in that homecoming back to Oklahoma City. Had a couple nice blocks, one on a kind of step out when Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, who was great tonight. And I think every Buck big got blown by at least once by Shai, going to kind of one of those Statue of Liberty layup finishes that he's so good at. But Serge kind of got him jumping out on him from the drop coverage on a floater. And then he had a really nice block at the rim on, who was it? Number 21, Aaron Wiggins, I think it was. So again, nice to see Serge showing some signs of life. Now the real question, second night of a back-to-back tomorrow, you've got Capella, you've got Okongwu. Is John Collins playing right now? I think he might be hurt. I don't
The only player Atlanta have on the injury report is Kevin Huerter, and he's actually probable to play. So they're going to be full strength.
Okay. So, again, Atlanta, not necessarily a team you think of as like being like killing you with size, but a lot of that's because we've seen them kind of have lack size at other spots. But certainly, we've obviously Capella's huge lob threat, around the rim guy. Okongwu, I think mainly, especially been impressive defending Giannis. So it'll be an interesting test for Giannis against him in kind of some of the second unit minutes. And again, Serge, all these kind of older players, second night of a back-to-back, as we were talking about the other day. A lot of times the hard part is not, putting together a good night and having energy when you're well rested. But 2 games in 2 nights, that can be kind of a different story. So I would say the Bucks probably going to be hoping that the Hawks have an off shooting night, because second night of back-to-back, bringing maybe some little heavier legs, probably going to be maybe a little more difficult to score at a really high rate. Maybe they're not going to have another 50% shooting night from 3 2 nights in a row. So you kind of have to hope that obviously you can summon maybe a little bit more defensive effort than we saw tonight, and that hopefully the Hawks at least aren't just red hot.
Last game at home for a while as well, because then they'll head out west to get the Warriors in a couple of nights' time. So it's an important one to get, because even though some of those teams in the West are struggling a little bit, it's on the road, and those trips can be challenging, as we saw a few weeks ago, despite the fact they're able to win a few. Also, make sure you check out the Locked On NBA podcast, the national show on the network. They'll have you covered for everything that's going on around the league, including, like I said, this matchup, Philly, Brooklyn. Everyone's going to be watching. Everyone knows. Yeah, they're going to boo Ben Simmons. I heard the question today on No Dunks. Is there going to be a tribute video for Ben Simmons? I think not. But what about if they did a tribute video that was all just like mysteries? Or they couldn't do that because the business wouldn't allow them to do that.
Yeah.
But it would be some incredible stuff. So, hey, I'm looking forward to watching that game as well, Frank. I'm going to be watching.
Yeah, that game I'm definitely looking forward to. It is interesting. Like I'm trying to think of a guy. Trying to think of examples, because this now seems like everybody gets tribute videos when guys.
Did Kyrie get one going back to Boston?
That's a good question. He shouldn't have, because he was barely there, and
I can't remember.
But I mean, even Kyrie didn't. I mean, he didn't like demand a trade and like basically sit out the season. So I mean, I don't think you can do it. I think I agree with you. I don't think they can do like a low light tribute video.
So
I don't think they can
Brooklyn,
be. I don't think it can be that cruel. But they could do. I mean, they could do. They could say, "Oh, we're going to go the high road and play a highlight video," and just as an opportunity to have the fans just boo the hell out of it,
yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah.
But I don't know. I think he just. I mean, if I was game ops, I would just say, let's just do no tribute video, but we can show him on the big screen a fair bit when he's walking around, on the bench, um, with his dead eyes and making no expression and whatever.
What
So
about the
we'll see. But
return trip?
I'm going to be rooting. I'm going to be rooting for the Nets, though, right? I mean,
Of course.
given where the Sixers and Nets are in the standings relative to the Bucks, I am going to be me and Ben Simmons are gonna be the biggest Nets fans in the building, not in the building, but in the world on Thursday night. So we'll see. But that should be, yeah, that's definitely gonna be a fun one. And as we've said, sign us up for
Yes.
Nets Sixers first round. That would be just must see television.
What about the return trip? Does Brooklyn do a tribute video for James Harden? Because he was there for about 12 months. They did nothing. I don't think that he deserves a tribute video, but that is very 2022 to give James Harden a tribute video. So that's the remaining question. I don't know if they play again, actually, so that might be in the postseason, so they probably wouldn't do it. But I'm very fascinated. But anyway, I'm also fascinated in Bucks and Hawks. We'll be back after that one. That's 7 p.m. tip-off at Fiserv Forum. Bucks are 41-25. Like Frank said, they win this game, they can slip up to the second seed. It's been a while since they were in that position in the standings, so we'll see what happens. We'll be back after the game. Catch you guys then.